Hi again, everyone. It is Chad Harberts with the Chad Harberts Show, talking high school sports all across the state of Iowa, and talking some more volleyball this week with Zac Ceresa, the head coach at Hudson High School. Hi, Zac.
How's it going?
Good. We are now into that part of volleyball preseason where you move away from a little bit of practice, start moving into that scrimmage to see how you're facing off against other teams. How is scrimmage season going?
Scrimmage season's great. We've had a couple opportunities this summer to go to Ankeny, Johnston, some places we wouldn't normally go, see some teams we wouldn't normally play. And that, of course, opens up opportunities that we wouldn't know that we had. And it's been really great to push ourselves against the 5A, 4A schools, see where we stack up in the 2A mix. Not only that, but do some final touches on potential options for the fall. I feel like good varsity coaches go into the fall having an idea of what's going to happen, but great varsity coaches have no problem throwing that out if things aren't working. And that's what it's been all about this last couple of weeks, has been figuring out what I might need to throw out and what I can keep. So that's been pretty cool.
It seems like a team at your level, you're going to try to execute what you want, say offensively and defensively, but at the same time, in the regular season, there won't necessarily be a Division I blocker in that spot that you would have if you're playing a 5A school during the scrimmages.
Really funny you say that. We got to play Ankeny on Saturday, who we're going to talk in a sec, is a top 5A team in my opinion. And they have a phenomenal outside hitter who hit over my Division I pin hitters and hit over her. And my girls looked at me and they're like, what do we do? And I said, nothing different. We may see one or two of those kids in our regular season when we play out of our class, but that caliber of kid is not something that we'll consistently see. And so we don't want to prepare for the minority of things. We want to prepare for the majority of things and then make adjustments for the minority of things.
And really, you're just looking, I think did the ball go to the right place? Did we make the right decision? You want to execute, but obviously that's not always the case depending on who the defender is. But more importantly, did they run the sets offensively and defensively like you wanted them run?
Absolutely. Looking more on our side of the net than theirs is important. I know a lot of schools, successful school programs, that don't scout at all. Like, do not scout against other teams, because the truth is over 75% of the errors end up resulting in whoever wins the match and loses the match. So focusing on your side and reducing your own errors is more important than getting that dig on that opponent or making sure the block up's on the right kid and those sorts of things.
And now we're like 7 days away from the regular season. I know there's some more scrimmage opportunities coming up, but how do you sort of change your preseason routine to get focused on regular season play?
I think it's all about establishing consistency. So if you are doing something completely different in your last few scrimmages than the first few scrimmages, you need to ask yourself, am I being consistent? Have I been changing too many things? Have I been throwing too many new ideas at my kids? Because nothing builds confidence more than the girls knowing what they're going to do in the moment, because it just feels natural for them. So really, there's nothing crazy different we're doing besides maybe putting more of our final lineup out there for scrimmages. On Saturday, we have a big 16-team scrimmage hosted here at Hudson with a bunch of what I predict to be ranked teams. And that'll be a great opportunity to see some of my starters in those roles, fine-tuning some things. But at the end of the day, nothing majorly different from scrimmages. Obviously, that's not a big reflection on our game plan for the fall because we don't want to give too much away, but it definitely helps build that confidence.
The other part of this is right now, by and large, all these girls have to do is volleyballs because school hasn't started. It changes probably a little bit as well when they start getting that school load, that homework, and they still have to have the practices and the games.
A great coach once told me how our athletes' day at school went has more influence on their game than what we did at practice the day before. And I think it's very true. I think as we start adding school to the mix, good coaches become conscientious of all the other things going on in an athlete's life. And those are the biggest adjustments we need to make. Trying to force a square peg through a circle hole doesn't actually work. And so making those adjustments in practices, in matches, in games, there's nothing we can do to predict that. So we just got to be ready to throw that plan out the door, like I mentioned earlier.
Well, I think, I'm just about this off the top of my head. I think the fall sports season, you have it a little bit easier because really the only big activity in that fall sports season is homecoming. Whereas like the spring sports season, you're dealing with prom, you're dealing with graduation, you're dealing with all kinds of things like that. So I think it's maybe a little easier to keep athletes focused in the fall sports season.
I agree. And it's a straight run. Unlike winter sports that are usually split seasons, like girls and boys basketball, volleyball, football, cross country, tennis, it is a straight run now from start to finish. It's kind of is a marathon. Who's going to survive the longest with the highest amount of intensity and endurance, and who's going to get burnt out? Last year, we went through the situation of burnout as the season progressed, and we got to the end on a little disappointing finish. And so all summer, we've been talking about what culturally do we need to do to prevent burnout and to finish that marathon strong.
Is there something you can do? I had to stop by Grundy Center High School this morning, and I saw them practicing in the gym as I was going down the hallway. Is there something that volleyball coaches do in season to kind of break up that monotony of day after day of just straight up practices?
I think intentional design and realizing what's truly important. We feel like at Hudson, what's really important is obviously culture is the number one most important thing, but with culture, it's having fun. So last week was our full week of super intense practices, 4-hour days. We don't do 2 of days because we find the second part is less intense. So we just do 4-hour sessions broken up by journaling and some growth mindset exercises. But we got to that 5th day there on that Friday, and I had this plan, and the girls came in and they said, "Coach, we have an idea for something, and we brought a bunch of bed sheets to do it." And I said, "Okay, if you have something planned, we're going to do it." They ended up draping bed sheets over the net and then doing mixes, sixes, tipping and roll shots only, and off speeds, and playing basically blind volleyball. And it was so much fun. The girls were having the time of their lives. And that right there rejuvenates that battery that you talked about. So how do you prevent burnout? Figure out what your specific program needs that's not volleyball related and just hone in on that. For us, it's having as much fun as possible. And if that's what it is, that's what it is.
Yeah, I was just thinking about the fact that I know sometimes wrestling teams will get, because that's such a grind, they're like, you know what, today, what we're doing for practice is we're going to play dodgeball. We're going to get you free from the practice mentality for a little bit and just have a little fun, have a little camaraderie. We'll get back to the grind the next day. So I know you have to with these athletes now, because they don't want to grind day after day after day, because you're going to burn them out at some point.
And part of it's consistency of what they've been doing already. So a program like Grundy Center, Lori Willis is just, I mentioned this last episode, but is just so good at getting all her players bought in from the very start. So whether they're 4th grade or 5th grade, when they get to high school, they are used to this intensity. They're used to this drive. They're used to the expectations, given they still probably take breaks just like everybody else to make sure we're not overdoing it. But this is only my 2nd year here at Hudson. I don't want to try, like I said earlier, shoving that square peg through the circle hole and force a result out that they're not physically or emotionally or psychologically safe enough to handle yet. And so making sure we're interjecting or kind of distracting them sometimes from the high intensity, high stressful situations is definitely important when you're a new program.
Well, the other part of this, and I know this happens in basketball, I'm not sure about volleyball, but basketball, obviously, when you get to the club, the AAU season, it's just game. There's no practice. So I've talked to girls basketball coaches who have told me it's hard to keep them focused in practice now because they're just used to that AAU where it's just nothing but games. Is volleyball club sort of the same thing? Is it just mainly games and tournaments?
It's a great question. I think it all depends on the club you play at. For a long time, the club structure in Iowa was, we really support multi-sport athletes, and a lot of clubs still do. And so we only compete once every 2 or 3 weeks. We're not even competing that often for USAV travel volleyball because we have so many multi-sport athletes. There are some clubs now in the state that are gearing more towards volleyball only athletes they're competing every weekend, and they might be going out of state every other weekend to Rock Island or wherever that may be. And I think it's good because then there's a market for everyone. If you're just a volleyball player, there's a spot for you now. If you are a multi-sport athlete who loves volleyball, there's still a spot for you. Versus AAU, it's a sprint to the finish line. We have 2.5 months of game time in AAU volleyball, basically, and you just fit in as many tournaments as your girls are available for. So do we see a difference when they hit high school? Yes, but it's not necessarily a negative. We see this little bit slower pace where we can lock in on a game and we play one team. I can put all my effort and intensity into one, or if it's 2 teams, And I know that my practice leading up to it is not leading up towards a mystery opponent at a tournament. So that's great. And we also see that in high school, athletes are a different version of bought in. They're playing with their friends. They are playing for their hometown pride, their small town pride, or their big school pride, versus a club. You're motivated because you're playing with a bunch of high level talented kids against a bunch of high level talented kids, paying that money to be there. You're opting into that experience. So it's a different type of motivation, but I don't think it's necessarily slower or faster, if that makes any sense.
Okay, we talked yesterday briefly. We decided to come up with 2 different top 10 polls, one being Chad's not too informed top 10 poll, and one being Zac's way more informed, way more expert top 10 poll. So let's go to 5A, as I think mine's going to be kind of weird or uninformed. Let's go to 5A, but let's go with every class. Let's go with you first, because you know a lot more about high school volleyball than I do. So 5A poll.
Well, 5A is the one I had to do the most calls and research about. I'm not going to lie to you. In the 2A world, we're focusing on a little bit smaller schools, but I think everyone agrees Waukee Northwest is going to be very hard to beat. They graduated 1 key player, so 6 out of 7 starters return. And again, I'm going to preface this whole thing by saying, based upon research and phone calls meeting, there's a high chance I'm wrong about quite a few of this. So players, I apologize if I pronounce your names wrong. Coaches, I apologize if I say you're returning 5 out of 7 starters, but you're really returning 6 or 4. 7 starters, meaning the 6 you put on plus your libero is what I'm counting for starters. So Waukee Northwest is returning what I see 6 out of 7 starters. Avery Vogt graduates, who is a big piece of their team, but it's 5A. So you have another kid coming up that's solid to fill that place. I put them as the returning champs, going to go for a 2-peat there. Ankeny next. We just saw Ankeny on Saturday. They're running a 6-2. They're replacing their senior setter, Mia, with Kellen Roush, who's fantastic. She's the sister of the senior middle Quinn. They'll be tough to beat. Third, I have Dowling. That's a team that you look at their record, 18-12 last season. Maybe you underestimate them, but they're the number 1 most competitive schedule in the entire state of Iowa, according to Bound. So that's a tough team. Kennedy Klein's committed to St. Thomas. Kaylee Klein, Santa Clara. Caroline Crane, Fresno State. Gianna Stefanel, Western Michigan. It's a stacked team for sure. Fourth, got to go Iowa City West. That's a bunch of Division I volleyball players. Izzy McDonald's committed to Iowa. Audrey Small, who is actually out this season with an injury, is committed to Florida Gulf Coast. Sophia Austin's in Iowa State. Josie Austin will go D1. Lila Eastervold, Taylor Odie, Cyan Bloomer, they'll all go D1. Mm-hmm. Their game is going to be getting everyone on the same page. If they can do it, this is potentially a state finalist team, if not potentially a state champ. If they're all doing something different, they're still going to be dangerous. DCG, one of the 2 teams that moved up to 5A. Anna Jackson's going to Nebraska Keenery. Maggie Lefkert is going to Minnesota State Mankato. Gwen Farley's one of the best setters in the state, going to Valparaiso. Returning 6 out of 7 starters. It doesn't matter whether it's 4A or 5A. The only difference is 4A, they'd probably be the state champ. Indianola's at 6 for me. A lot of returners. Haley New is going to, and I'm going to butcher this college's name, Bemidji State? Bemidji State.
Minnesota, yeah.
Yeah. Madison Grover's going to Wayne. Great team. 7 going Valley. 4 out of 7 returners. Miley Root just committed to Drake. She plays for a club called Roots. Ankeny Centennial, we've seen them a couple times this season, and they only return 2 out of 7. But at the end of the day, with 5A, you can reload in an instant. Cedar Rapids Kennedy is going to be our surprise top 10er, in my opinion. They return all 7 starters. Addie Phillips just committed to one of the greatest schools in Iowa, Mount Mercy University. Go Stanks. And Doug Palmer's got so much experience, they'll be good. And then I have Cedar Falls at 10. This is a young team that graduated a libero and a setter. But Hadassah Smith, we said this last podcast, she may be the best, if definitely not one of the best volleyball players in Iowa as a sophomore. And so Cedar Falls is my 10. Got to watch out for Waukee, Liberty, Pleasant Valley, Bettendorf, but those are my top 10.
Okay, I feel good about the fact that I think I have almost all the same teams you have, though in a different order. So mine's going to be, I've got Waukee Northwest first, Ankeny Centennial second. They met in the state championship game a year ago, state championship match a year ago. I have Valley third, Ankeny 4, Iowa City West 5, Cedar Falls 6, Indianola 7. I love the fact Indianola's got a bunch of kids coming back off that team that went to state a year ago. I had Dallas Center Grimes 8, which I like you, even though they're moving up a class, that girls class they have right now is just loaded. I've got Dowling Catholic 9 and Waukee 10. So a few different teams, and definitely a different order. But I think we agree that the CIML is going to be very good again this year. We think Cedar Falls is going to be good. We know Iowa City West is going to be good. So I think we're on the same page by and large at 5A.
Yeah, we're going to be talking to Matt Johnson on a later podcast here about 5A volleyball different from 1A. But one of the things Matt says is there used to be a time where you could say the top 10 teams for 5A, and they were the same every year, just a different order. But we're at the point in Iowa volleyball history where they're all really good. And so Waukee, I had of 11, and Malia Rogers going to Purdue is just a monster. That is a team that could very easily get there. They actually got upset in 5, if I remember correctly, in the regional final by Indianola. I'm probably wrong about that now that I'm saying it out loud. But you just have a bunch of great teams that can get the job done. So I'm excited to see what happens.
Okay, let's go down to 4A. What are your thoughts there?
This is a lot more wide open. I'm losing DCG and North Scott being the reigning state champs, and DCG would have been my number 1 overall pick for a state championship in 4A. I would like to say there are a lot more than 10 teams that can finish here in the final 10, but my 10, number 1 is going to be Norwalk. They have the naturally competitive schedule, 19th overall most competitive schedule in the state, returning 5 out of 7 starters. Ellie Hapvig is, oh my gosh, fun to watch. She's going to Michigan State. She's a 6-row outside hitter. Hadley Michael, Truman State commit. She led 4A in assists last year. Delane Steele, University of Arkansas, Little Rock. Like, that's a tough team to beat. Sergeant Bluff, SBL as 2. This is a team that always makes a very, very good postseason run. And considering they return 5 out of 7, they can do it this year for sure. Sioux Center are runners up from last year. Their schedule is a little less tough than other people, but it doesn't change the fact that they're very well coached and they are ginormous. We got to watch them at the IGCA camp and they looked very good. Marion 4. Marion made it to state last year off a regional final upset, but is returning 5 out of 7 starters. Abby Kirk is coming back as the leading killer in 4A. As a sophomore this year, Roxanne Paulson has brought teams to state for a very long time, so she knows what it takes and she knows how to get them there. Bishop Heelan 5 made it to the regional final last year, returning 4 out of 7 starters with a bunch that played every match last year anyway, coming back. Melina Snoozy's going to Iowa State for basketball, but she's also just as good on the volleyball court. Clear Creek Amana, Julia Schlescherbaumer is great. She's going to University of South Dakota. She's fun to watch. Bailey Simpson's going to Missouri Western. They are only returning 3 out of 7 starters, but it's a good location. Playing a bunch of 5A schools, they can get the job done. Western Dubuque is going to be a surprise team. Great, deep roster with a bunch of incomers that are fantastic. And I'm going to tell you, for next year, they got an 8th grade class that is just out of this world too. Waverly Shell Rock at 8. We've seen them so many times this summer, and yet I have not seen them with their full team, which means they're going to be dangerous when they do have their full team. They have a Division I wrestler who is like 6'2". I mean, she's just ginormous. So good for them on the pin. They moved her to right side at a certain point this summer, and she blocks almost every ball, so it's tough to beat. Lewis Central 9, regional finalists from last year, returning 4 out of 7. Got a tough schedule for being out west. And then my 10th is going to be North Polk. They're going to be the surprise this year. I think North Polk deserved the ranking they got last year. Returned 5 out of 7 kids. Samantha Sheldon is one of the coaches you may have never heard of, but has always been behind the scenes at helping teams be successful. She was at Knoxville, helping out there when they were good back in the day. Still a good program. She went to Pella for a year. When she left, she had set the foundation. Joel Ullman's done a great job, but she set the foundation for them to make their 2 appearances the last 2 years. She's now at North Polk, and she's been leading them for her 2nd season. They're going to be tough to beat just because of how well they're coached. There's my top 10.
Okay, I like this. I'm in the ballpark here. I have Sioux Center number 1, Clear Creek Amana number 2. I like the returning players for both those squads. I slotted Assumption at number 3.
Actually,
I don't know if it's overdoing it, but that's where I slotted them. Norwalk 4, Western Dubuque 5. You stole my dark horse. I got Waverly Shell Rock at 6 because they've got the big girl who was the middle last year. They got Lizzie Frizzell, who's just a fabulous athlete all the way around in volleyball and basketball. I like them. I put Xavier in at 7, Lewis Central 8, Sergeant Bluff Luton at 9, and Bishop Heelan 10. So I mean, and we know you know more about volleyball than I do, so I feel good about being in the ballpark in 4A.
I'm gonna be honest, and I meant to mention this at the end. They're literally right here on my list, but I wanted to put a note on Davenport Assumption. I think this team is going to be very good in 4A. I just have not seen them at all this summer. I'm interested to see how they handle the classification change. Greg Cotton, I mentioned this last episode, is a really great club coach. He just led them to a state championship last year in 3A. So do I think they're going to be top 10? Yes, I 100% do. I just don't know where. So Assumption, I'm sorry, but I know you're going to get there. I just don't know where you're going to be on that list. Great program for sure.
If they have a huge run this year, well, remember I had them third in the preseason poll.
100%.
Let's go to Class 3A. What do you have there?
So 3A, in my opinion, is a little more straightforward. I think Western Christian's going to be virtually unstoppable. Breslin Kuma's committed to Dort. Madeline DeJager is just an incredible hitter for them. We just played them at IGCA, and she scored on every single ball she touched. Oh, my goodness gracious. Just flies out of the gym. Morgan Kuman is committed to University of South Dakota, and she's going to be hard to beat. They did graduate Maggie Van Scheppen for Dort, but at the same time, Western Christian reloads every single year like clockwork. The only difference is there's been years past where they've had a fully senior starting class, and you always question whether they're going to be reloading or not. They're returning at least 3 starters, which is enough for them to make a championship run. So Western Christian 1, Cherokee 2. They have 3 hitters that broke 200 kills last year. Addie Wolfswinkel going to University of Nebraska, Omaha. Elena Mortensen, Diedrich Duden, who is so much fun to watch going to Wichita State. Both the setters return. The libero returns. Going to tough to beat Cherokee. 3, I got Kemper returning 5 starters. All their efficiency leaders, both their kill leaders. Great team, tough conference. Humboldt 4, yes, they graduate a few kids, but Addie Goodall, Addie Waldorf, Jazzy Dot. Addie Waldorf's committed to UNI. And they actually plays for the same club team as a lot of the kids we already mentioned in 4A, 5A. It's a one-team club called Iowa Premier that's extremely well coached. So Humboldt 4. I put DNH 5. DNH and Red Oak I have as 5 and 6. DNH at 5, I'm not going to lie, only plug-and-play program in the state. I don't care who they graduate, who they have left. They're going to be phenomenal. I have Mount Vernon 6 because, again, well coached, always going to reload. Sophia Meester was one of the kill leaders last year in Class 3A, and she's back. Maverick Schroer is a great libero going to Simpson College. Roland Story 7, big senior class. I don't know how good they're going to be when the senior class graduates, but Brooklyn Johnel, Miley Geis, Carson Land, just great players. Wilton is my surprise at 8. I've been a big fan of Leah Caffrey for years, and she can bring that team to wherever they want to go for sure. In addition, their coach has been to state a bazillion times as well, I feel like. Wilton 8, then I said. Center Pointer Band is going to be my 9. Big senior class, big junior class. Addie Steen is committed to Houston. She hit and set last year. They did graduate their other setter to run that 6-2 with her, who's going to UW Stevens Point, but they're going to be great there in the WAMAC. And then my 10, bold pick, I'm going to go MOC Floyd Valley in the classification change. They're in a tough conference. They lost in the regional semis of 4A. I think they have what it takes to do good in 3A here. 30th overall most competitive schedule. They can do it for sure. So there's my top 10 for 3A.
Okay, I get a little bit loose here in 3A. Our top 6 or so are similar, but then I get a little wild towards the end. So I have Western Christian 1. I have Solon 2. I think Solon, being one of the biggest schools in that class, are going to have a pretty good squad. Humboldt 3. Dyke New Hartford 4 for the various reasons you talked about, which is they're always competitive, doesn't matter where they're at. I have Kemper Catholic 5, Cherokee Washington 6, Knoxville 7. And then I got a little stuck after 7. So I went for 8, 9, and 10. I went Algona 8, Roland Story 9, and Mount Vernon 10, which I know you had Mount Vernon higher. So after that first 6 or 7, I got a little stuck with all the rest of the teams in Class 3A. And we know how competitive it's going to be. And so I would guess throughout the year, those bottom 3 teams in Class 3A or even in the state poll are going to change up quite a bit as teams kind of move in and out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Class 2A, your class, and our polls are definitely going to be different. And I'm going to tell you right now, I got Red Oak as the number 1 team in 2A, but I want to hear your 2A poll first. Okay.
But I do have Red Oak in my top 10 here. So for 2A, number 1 overall, we're going Grundy. I think my favorite part about Grundy's program is that Lori Willis hates being referred to as like this year's probable state champs, because she is all about earning it. She is all about the girls deserve the world, but they're going to have to earn it. But if I'm being realistic here, it's going to be very hard to stop them. They have the tallest female athlete in Iowa, going to Marquette. Charlie Kirkpatrick's tough. Jenna Blythe is my player to watch in our conference this year. I think she's going to have another fantastic season. Number 2, I have Hinton. Bailey Boovey. Is that how you say it? Boovey?
Whatever you say is fine by me.
She went to Creighton. She's a big graduate for them, but they didn't graduate anyone else. And that's a great team for sure. Beckman Catholic 3. I did find out that Paige Fangman, their returning setter, is also out with a season-ending injury. But it doesn't change the fact that the twins, Joy and Jalen Burkle, are able to carry a team just based upon their positions. Positionally, they can carry a team for sure. 4, I have Union. Always sneaky, always good. Coming up. Definitely got to watch for them. Now, I'm going to put us at 5. And a little bit of bias there, but also I see what we do in the practice gym. I see the teams we've beaten this summer, and I think it's going to be hard to stop us if we can get the job done at the right times. Central Lions 6, Red Oak 7, both for the same reasons. A lot of big physical kids. Woodward Granger 8, a very young team still. Elena Shack is a monster. She's on the same club team as Addie Waldorf, Ellie Hatvig, and some of those other kids that I talked about that Iowa Premier team. She's great. AP went to state last year, so I have them at 9, returning a bunch of their good kids. My surprise team here at 10 is going to be Sumner Fredericksburg, a competitive conference rival here. They have a bunch of good kids. Hannah Bowman is not only one of the best setters in the state, but she was one of the leaders in 2A for kills last year too. So she's coming up. That's a great team that's going to be hard to stop for sure. They graduated Alexa Bauman, her sister, going to Wartburg, but they're a good team for sure. So there's my 10.
Okay, I'm in the ballpark here, I think. I have Red Oak number 1 overall. They were 38-3 last year. Had a great season, have a good returning squad. Grundy Center 2 for the obvious reasons. They've got the big middle and Ryan Brubaker. Love Jenna Blythe, great athlete, just a great human being. I see her all the time at the pool. She lifeguards in the summer. I see her down at school because I do some stuff down there. Just a great kid. Beckman Catholic 3. I've got Hinton 4, Hudson 5. Here's my dark horse, because you didn't have them at all. I have Osage at 6. I think they have a shot to be good with the returning squad they have.
Actually, I'm going to interrupt you there. They have a phenomenal freshman coming in named Molly Street, who is the sister of, forgetting her name, but her brother's playing football at, I believe, UNI. Molly's a stud.
Quinn Street's sister, yeah.
Yeah, Molly Street can do some damage for that team for sure. She's actually on the shorter side of things, but she plays outside for her club team. She can fly. And so whether they play her at outside or libero won't matter. She's going to add a lot of depth to that team. So that's a good pick, actually. I like that pick.
I have Regina Catholic 7, Union Community 8, Appleton and Parkersburg 9, and a surprise here a little bit, but I have Jessup at 10, even though I know they have to replace Sarah Mead, who was just a superstar athlete for them. I knew I needed one more NICL team in there. You like Sumner Fred, understandable. I'm going to go with Jessup. We'll see how it shakes out, but we know how good the NICL is in volleyball, and I'm sure there'll be some NICL teams, 4 or 5 of them, in that poll throughout the year.
I'm going to give a shout out to Denver and Missouri Valley. Missouri Valley, I just haven't seen them at all. I don't know a ton about them because they're pretty far out there. They may be in this list as well somewhere. And Denver, this is going to be the year to see Denver. They had a great senior class, but I think Denver is also a great program, and this is going to be the year to prove it. If they're going to do well this year, they're officially a great program, not just a great class of kids that has brought them all this way. They return the Dina Murch. They have a great freshman named Maya Herman. They have the pieces. They can do it right now, but this is going to be the year to show it.
Absolutely. So let's go to 1A, the smallest class, and your thoughts on that class.
Man, this one is a little wilder. I just think in 1A, I'm going to give you my top 7, actually. And then I'm going to intentionally leave 3 spots open because, and we're going to talk about this in a later podcast, but 1A is the class of great senior groups. You can have a 1A school like Lake Mills last year, for example, that comes to state with this pretty much entirely senior lineup. And Lake Mills wasn't on anyone's radar at the start of the season. So I think you definitely have in 1A, you always have a few teams that make in the top 10. It's just a really great year for them. And I want to make sure they have room. So Janesville is my number one. I feel like that's going to be hard to beat Janesville. They took runner-up last year to St. Ansgar. They return all of their best pieces. Hayden Anderson, Teapola, Gracie Blaze, Honor Havinga. I'm saying that one.
That's exactly right. Havinga, yeah.
Oh, sweet. Lauren Meany and Quinn Sweeney. Quinn Sweeney's like 6'4".
Yeah.
Goodness gracious, is she strong. And Shelly Sorensen is one of the most accoladed coaches in the state for volleyball. So watch out for sure. Here's my curveball. I am putting Wapsie at 2. I am putting Wapsie at 2 because they are so good in Class 2A every single year. Austin Shepard robotically has his kids doing all the right things. They have one of the best liberos in the state. She actually played outside for them last year, but in the club scene, she's one of the top kids. Even though they graduated Taylor Brewer, it doesn't change the fact that Austin can find someone to fill that role for sure. And they play small ball a lot of times, which means they're not hitting the ball straight down all the time, but they are putting in a spot that you're not going to be able to get it. Dunkerton 3, Ali Pexa. Taylor, I don't know if I have to say much more than that. That's a great group of kids. Sydney is my 4. Sydney graduated almost nobody, and that was a team that is great. I have Holy Trinity 5. You never know what they get down there. Fishmeyer has gone to state more times than I think I've been alive. Hate to say it. So she's great. Ankeny Christian. Ankeny Christian was not in my list last time we talked, but I did get the opportunity to watch them this last weekend, and they are good. You have another quick girl that's now a freshman that can help carry that team. That's a big, young group of kids that's going to do some dangerous stuff for them. I have North Tama 7. I'm on 7, right? North Tama 7. Channing's a great coach. Their leading killer is back. Elena, tough team to beat. Boyden Hall is going to be my 8. They were in Class 2A last year and did well. So in 1A, they're going to do great. BCIUW is off my list, but they could come back in. I mentioned last podcast, Olivia Peters is the scorer for that team, and Olivia Peters is out with a season-ending injury. So they're still a great squad, but they're going to have to do quite a bit of work to get in there. So those are my 7, like I said, or my 8. I have 2 or 3 spots open that I'm leaving for those 1A schools that just have good classes that I don't know about. Let's hear it. How off am I, Chad?
Hey, I actually have the first 3 exactly like you have. I have Janesville, Wapsie, Dunkerton, 1, 2, 3. I think Janesville is the odds-on favorite to win state in 1A for a lot of reasons. Coaching, returners, their setters, amazing. I think Janesville's got a really solid team this year. Wapsie obviously dropping down as good as they were in 2A a year ago. Dunkerton, Kylie Pex is just a tremendous athlete. She's fast, jumps well. She's been to state in the high jump. She's taken the basketball team to state as the front of that full court press. I really like her as an athlete. I have North Tama 4, Sydney 5. I put Lake Mills in at 6. Lake Mills had a good run late in the season a year ago. I think they could make some noise this year. I had IKM Manning 7, Boyden Hall 8, Holy Trinity Catholic Fort Madison 9, and then Ankeny Christian at 10. And I'm going to admit that might be low for Ankeny Christian because they always seem to put together a fantastic regular season, and typically they're ranked higher in the state poll than I maybe give them credit for, but then they're always really good late. So I have them at 10, but you could easily make an argument that Ankeny Christian should be ranked probably higher than that.
I'm excited to see what Lake Mills does in 1A. They were in 2A last year, I believe, and so dropping down to 1A, they could probably do some damage. 1A is always a good class, and we haven't even talked about Cedar Ridge Christian. We haven't talked about the fact that St. Ansgar is one of the most athletic schools in the state. Right. West Hancock has a couple really solid kids. There's a high chance that 1A is going to be shaken up this year, but I think we both did a really solid job recognizing the teams that we know deserve that credit to start the season. So,
well, I think when you look at 1A, you look at Janesville, Dunkerton, North Tama, they're all in the Iowa Star. They play a pretty competitive schedule. They beat each other up during the regular season. They get some really good competition, like Wapsie playing in the NICL. I think the teams that shake out late in the year, by and large, are the teams that play the most competitive schedules during the year. And if you've got a tough conference, so there's a reason why CIML teams are always in state competitions, they have a tough conference. When you look at volleyball and you look at the NICL You look at the Iowa Star, you're seeing a lot of top-notch volleyball programs. So if you're facing those good programs twice a week, all week during the regular season, you're going to be pretty solid at the end of the year.
I think you're 100% right. And on a personal story, my wife is also an exceptional volleyball coach. She was asked to take over a program 3 years ago at North Mahaska in New Sharon, Iowa. And she took the job. She's a great coach. They ended up finishing the season 21-2. 21-2, best record they've had, I think, almost in ever. JV only had 2 losses. JV2 was undefeated. The point I'm making is the record was great, but they actually lost in the regional semifinal to Regina. And part of the reason is because the Sickle, Southern Iowa Senior League, just has so many teams that there's so many conference games that take up their schedule. So although North Mahaska had the ability to compete against some of these best teams in the state, because of how big their conference was and how many of their 14 match dates were taken by conference teams that weren't very good, and they didn't get to play the tough competition until it was that bracket play. I completely agree with you. The naturally competitive schedule is significantly underrated in the sport of volleyball, in all sports, but the CMINL, the NICL, parts of the Iowa Star, the MVC, whatever the conference is on the east side of the state with the Assumptions and stuff, River Valley Conference. You have a few conferences that, if I were to look back at the state teams, I'd have to guess make up a majority of the percentage of teams attending state. And it's for that exact reason. You're not wasting your conference nights with bad competition or competition that's not up to your caliber.
Well, and certainly if you look at the NICL a year ago, the 5th best team in the NICL would have won some other 2A conferences. That's just how good the NICL was. You got to play Denver, then Grundy, then Dike, New Hartford, then Wapsie. And if you're the 5th best team, you're still a pretty good team in the NICL.
I remember my first experience watching Dike was at the Warrior Invite at Cedar Rapids, Washington, 6, maybe 7 years ago. And I remember thinking, man, this is a really good 5A school. And I remember Austin Filer telling me they're a 2A school. And so you're right. I mean, even us at Hudson, we went to the Ankeny scrimmage on Saturday and then IGCA the week before that. We were beating 4A, 5A, 3A teams, and we're going to be okay, like I said, but a lot of that is because we're used to playing such great teams, like you said. So that's not to say the teams with easier conferences can't make a run, but their coach is going to have to do a lot more of intentional practice design to make that happen. How can you modify the scoring conditions in practice to simulate playing against a good team? Maybe when you're doing 6v6 in practice, then you're doing a double point if they score in a corner. Or maybe it's like, hey, an automatic win if you get a stuff block, whatever that is, to simulate, hey, we're about to play teams that are going to block us way more often, that it will end up ending the game and those sorts of things.
Before I let you go, Zac, I got a great text from you yesterday or the day before that you were down in Ankeny and some other coaches saw the show and liked it, and you made some contacts. We're going to get some coaches on in the future.
Yeah, so I've already reached out to quite a few high school coaches. I mentioned earlier, Matt Johnson's more than willing to hop on the podcast. I messaged Carl Waldorf, the coach from Humboldt, that has kind of put them on the map in the last year or so. And I think we're just going to have a very, very good group of coaches coming on to give us some perspective on what is it like being in the trenches. I think that's what makes this show different from all the others is, and again, I'm not anywhere near one of the great coaches in Iowa, but I do get the opportunity to play against them and to talk to them and work with them. And so giving rankings, for example, from someone who's coaching and like you, someone who's heavily involved, I think makes this so much different than some of the other newspaper articles. There's a website that just released their volleyball rankings, and you can tell they're not volleyball people. And I think it's a great opportunity to hear from some of these coaches. What is it like competing at that 3A level? What is it like competing at 5A and having to play 2A schools that are good, that are really good, and vice versa? I'm really excited to see what we can do with this show. And Chad, I really appreciate all the opportunities for me to talk about the love of my life besides my wife and child, which is volleyball. So thank you very much.
I love it. I talked to Matt Johnson quite a bit. I'm over at Cedar Falls quite a bit in the fall. And then in the winter, when I go there for basketball, he's always in the gym. He's usually upstairs in the catwalk where I'm at. Love talking to him. And I want to get some of these other coaches from around the state. I would love to get to know their stories about their programs. And I think it's going to be a great addition to the Sports Guys Iowa Network, to the Chad Harberts Show, where we can really go in depth with volleyball, which is obviously one of the fastest growing sports in Iowa and producing so many great athletes, not only for all the different Iowa schools, but across the country. And I can't wait to really get into it with some other coaches and you and hear about great volleyball.
I'm excited too. And then I'm even more excited for pivoting after high school season to do some stint on college. We have so many great Iowa athletes that go on to play collegiate volleyball, and we just kind of forget about them. And we forget that Wartburg is consistently a top 20 team in the state or in the country for Division III volleyball, and that Drake doesn't get enough coverage like they deserve. So I'm excited. I've already talked to a few college coaches and college assistants that are more than happy to hop on the podcast. A few Iowa high school volleyball alumni that are now playing at that next level that are excited to get on. And I don't know, I'm just really excited to give these coaches, these players, these programs the attention and the credit they deserve. So again, I apologize if I missed some of your schools today, but I'm very excited to see what we can do this season. I would love nothing more than to be wrong about a lot of this, and more schools get to be talked about on this show.
And certainly if you watch this podcast and you look at our polls and you think we're out of our minds, please get in the comments and tell us we're out of our minds. Tell us what schools we missed. Tell us who we should be looking at, because we would love that. And what you just said, I started thinking about, I'll be at Northern Iowa's Volleyball Media Day tomorrow afternoon. I'm going over to shoot some videos. But I never really considered or never really followed the D2, D3 volleyball in this state, but like Kennedy Brant's at Wartburg, and I followed Kennedy for the last couple of years across multiple sports. She's a fantastic athlete. Love talking to her. I know I've got some Waterloo players down at Mount Mercy. I've got some players around. And yeah, if we got Iowa kids doing stuff at the college level, we want to support that too. We want to amplify that too. We want to make sure people know that these Iowa kids can go on and make these college programs great.
Absolutely. And it gives motivation. It lights a fire under the younger kids to say, this is what I'm going to do someday. This is what I want to be like someday. And at the end of the day, the USAV Iowa region has this great motto. It's grow the game. Grow the game to new heights. Grow the game however far it can go. And I just appreciate, Chad, you giving us a platform to do this. So thank you very much.
I love it, Zach. I love talking to you. We'll let you get to another week of scrimmages and practices. We'll get you back on next week. We'll talk some more volleyball.
Thank you very much, Chad.
Thanks so much, Zach. Appreciate it. This has been the Chad Harberts Show. Thanks for tuning into the Sports Guys Iowa Network. We have that great show in Upper Iowa. We've got Missouri Valley Conference shows. We've got a lot of things going on in Sports Guys Iowa. And definitely, we want you to check them out. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And certainly, if you love high school sports, this is the place to be. We're going to have high school coaches in volleyball. We're going to have high school coaches in football. We're going to cover the whole spectrum of fall sports. So make sure you check us out on Sports Guys Iowa Network. And we'll see you next time on the Chad Harberts Show.